We are reaching the climax of a campaign that began on October 7th, 2023. Everybody remembers the days after the surprise attack from Gaza. Uh, Prime Minister Netanyahu, his chief of staff, his defense minister, uh, stood before the Israeli people night after night and before the world, and they promised that this was going to be a long war. They promised that the war was not going to end in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Yemen, but that it was going to uh, once and for all reach Iran. Now, you have to understand that many people in the United States, younger people, are waking up, just the last couple of months or the last few years, waking up to realize that there's been this longstanding warfare between Israel and Iran. Many people don't realize how long this has been going or how deeply felt it is. In the state of Israel, across the political spectrum, left and right, for the last 20 years, Iran has been considered to be the number one threat to the state of Israel and to the Jewish people. The reason for this, among other things, is because the Iranians have never blushed about their goal to eradicate the state of Israel. This is something that they say on a daily basis. They chant it in their parliament, and the goal of putting nuclear weapons and missile systems, ballistic missile systems, capable of delivering those weapons to the state of Israel and to other countries in the region and in Europe and beyond. That is something that for 20 years, all Israeli leaders from all major parties have agreed cannot be allowed to happen. So this is a very old story. The first time that an American administration prevented Netanyahu and his cabinet from attacking the Iranian nuclear program was in 2010, and there's been repeated incidents of this kind since then. The state of Israel cannot live with a nuclear-armed Iran, and that's a wall-to-wall consensus. So this is finally coming to a head. And I have to say, just about President Trump, there have been a series of American presidents who have not allowed Israel to pursue this course. And they've kicked the can down the road. They've assumed that somehow it would be taken care of later. Especially President Obama and President Biden considered Iran to be not an enemy, but a potential friend and ally that needed to be coddled and brought in. President Trump is the first U.S. president who has allowed the state of Israel to pursue its necessary actions for its own defense by seeking once and for all, the elimination of the Iranian nuclear program.
But his goal was to do it by negotiations, right? And Bibi comes on Fox News on Sunday and basically lets the cat out of the bag. Last week we were told it had to happen in 24 hours. It had to happen on Thursday and Friday. It had to happen. That was the date because things are going to happen. They got bombs. They got ballistic missiles. They got nuclear bombs. Bibi then says on Sunday night that, when pressed by Brett Baer, and not pressed that much, that intelligence had come different than Tulsi Gabbard had given publicly back in March, where she said there's no real active program. And no U.S. government official has ever countered that. Bibi says, well, they've done some things. We've got some intelligence, and it would be, they would have a bomb in 12 to 13 months, which is a mantra we've heard before. So why was it about President Trump pursuing the course he wanted was a negotiated deal, as he just said right there. I'm talking to these guys. I'm on the phone. I want to negotiate a deal. Why
Steve,
all of a sudden we have to go with where we have 12 to 13 months?
Steve, you and I both remember President Trump in his first speeches laying out this policy. He was already saying it last December and January and February when he came into the administration. President Trump, as far as I'm aware, has not budged an inch, not an inch. His policy, he must have said this 100 times. His policy was Iran cannot get a nuclear bomb. If we can get it by negotiation, that's what we're going to do. And if we can't get it by negotiation, then we're going to have to do it some other way. We've all heard him say this over and again, over and over again. And I don't know that there is some kind of a difficulty. The last, I think you feel this as much as I do, that the last few months have been kind of crazy on the MAGA right, like in terms of the things people are accusing one another of and saying. But I think that any kind of a cold look at this would understand
Yoram, I
President
totally
Trump as
listen.
having.
Let me be blunt. Let me be blunt. I totally disagree. Don't spin this into MAGA.
Yes.
What's been a problem is the really awful military campaign running Gaza. It just stretches on and on and on. We back Israel more than anybody, and the question still is, why did it have to go Thursday and Friday night? And now we know it's regime change. The problem the MAGA right has with this, it looks like a crass political move by Bibi Netanyahu, who is vastly unpopular in Israel. I think his popularity is 30%. He has a problem
No,
holding
it's
his
not.
coalition together, and this was a blatant political move to try to save himself politically. And if he has to throw the region into a shooting war and needs the United States to come in, then he'll do it, sir.
Look, Steve, part of what's difficult. Look, you've known me for a while. NatCon is my movement. MAGA is my movement. I'm a nationalist conservative. I'm not one of these people who is out there pounding the pavement for America to be involved in this war or in any war. But I do think that over the last few months, there's been a change in the sources of information that people are using on the right in order to discuss the Middle East. I don't fully understand it, but I do know that at least one of our mutual friends said publicly on social media that he reads Haaretz every day, and reading Haaretz is it's literally reading the Israeli communists and the distortions that you get from information, if that's the sources of information, are problematic. So let's take this example that Tucker brought up, the supposed 30% popularity rating of Bibi Netanyahu. So I heard that this evening, and I went and I checked it. And the most recent polls put Bibi Netanyahu at 54%, and he's 30 points ahead of Naftali Bennett, who is the #2 contender for the prime ministership. Okay, 30-point spread. So Bibi, and by the way, if you go back a month or two and take a look at the same poll before the war, you'll see that it was almost exactly the same. There's been nobody anywhere near Bibi Netanyahu in terms of popularity as far as appropriateness to be the prime minister of the state of Israel for years. And so, look, we have to get back to the point where all of us NatCon, nationalist, conservative people, we have different views on different things, but we've got to get back to the point where we're having a reasonable conversation where the information that we're using is information that's based on facts. That's unfortunately not what's happening the last couple of months.
What is the facts? This was proposed. This was put forward that it had to happen last Thursday and Friday, right? There's something come up that it had to go. This is why this emergency meeting, all of a sudden you had to go. This intelligence was shared. And did he not say on Brett Baier that this would come to fruition, a potential bomb with a ballistic missile, 12 to 13 months from now? There's just this huge disconnect. There's a huge disconnect between what's being said one time and then kind of a reverse course.
I didn't hear the Brett Baier interview, and I also don't think that it's my job. I'm not an employee of the Israeli government, and I don't feel the need to defend absolutely everything that Prime Minister Netanyahu says. I don't know what happened in the particular meeting that we're talking about, and I don't know how the decision was made. But I do know something that I think, to my mind, is much more important, which is that 75% of Israelis support this war. And the reason, that's as of last night, the reason that 75% of Israelis support this war is because for 20 years we've been living with the threat of the development of nuclear weapons by the Iranian regime. For the Israeli public doesn't know and frankly doesn't care whether the breakout was supposed to be in 4 or 5 days or in 4 or 5 weeks or in 4 or 5 months. What nobody argues about at all is that the Iranians want a nuclear weapon, that they were working on building it as hard as they could for all of these years. And for Israelis, that's an existential threat. Now, it may be that there are people in the United States who, at this point, have something of a revisionist view. They've been reading Haaretz and they don't remember that just a few months ago it was a matter of consensus between nationalist conservatives, you know, America, Europe, India, Israel. Everybody knew that Iran was seeking to become the hegemon, the dominant player in the Middle East, that it was supplying proxy terrorist organizations, and that it was seeking a nuclear weapon. There wasn't any kind of secret about this. This has been discussed for 15 years openly. So if Netanyahu made a decision that it was now or never, because Trump had said, you know, this is what the Israeli public is hearing in any case. Trump said that the Iranians had 60 days to come to a deal. After 61, something terrible was going to happen. If you get to day 61, it's entirely possible that Netanyahu says, and his cabinet, they say, look, it's now or never. We don't have another opportunity. So as far as
hang on for 1 second. We're just going to hold you through a commercial break. Is it Haaretz? Haaretz? Why is that a suboptimal news source?
Haaretz is the represents the leftmost 5% of the Jewish population in the state of Israel. It's a newspaper with a very small circulation. It has a great deal of prestige because it's read by our lefty elite classes. But look into it. Not only is historically Haaretz a newspaper that opposed the establishment of the state of Israel, the Shokin family that founded it, they were anti-Zionists. They were against the establishment of the state of Israel. It is a newspaper that has, over the years, fought tooth and nail for what we in Israel call post-Zionism, for the elimination of the Jewish character of the state, for the elimination of the right of return to Jews to the state of Israel, and on political issues, like I say, something on the order of up to half of their writers and editors are members of the Israel Communist Party. You're reading party line when you're reading Haaretz. It makes no sense that any conservative of any kind, nationalist, traditionalist, Christian, Jewish, anybody with any kind of a feeling for the Jewish and Christian inheritance of the West would soak their brain daily in a propaganda sheet of that kind. I mean, imagine somebody from another country coming to the United States and saying, yeah, I read the New York Times. That's not a fair analogy because the New York Times is far to the right of Haaretz. But if somebody said to you, I know America because I read the New York Times every day, you'd say, come on, give me a break. What's wrong with you? Haaretz is far, far to the left and always has been of the New York Times. Haaretz teaches the New York Times how to be leftist.
I know you got to bounce in the middle of the night, and we've got Sam Fettis and a bunch of people. The MAGA right, I think a lot of people would say, hey, we have no problem at all. Israel's a nation. It's got its sovereignty, whatever it's got to do, obviously. And they have this war right now against the Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza. If they feel that they're threatened immediately with some sort of breakout, and their intelligence tells them that they have no problem with Israel doing what a sovereign nation can do. The issue is that is predicated upon at least air defense by the United States, and now tremendous pressure on President Trump to actually go onto air offensive sorties, combat sorties. The Nimitz battle group is en route from the South China Sea. We're forward deploying a bunch of tanker, refueling assets, air refueling assets. What is your response to people who say, hey, look, whatever you guys do, go do it. Just like in Gaza, we said, hey, if you got to go through hell, go through as quickly as possible. What's your answer to people? But we want absolutely no involvement with it, sir.
No, my first answer is, like I said before, is gratitude. Thank God that we have President Trump instead of a President Biden or Obama, who is allowing Israel to take care of very basic security needs that for decades have been put off. With regard to American involvement, I'm aware as you are that lots of people are saying lots of different things. I would like to repeat the official position of the Israeli government. I'll quote two people who are old friends: Gideon Sar, the foreign minister, and Tzachi Hanegbi, the national security advisor. Both people I've known for many years, and they're good men. And in the last couple of days, they've said clearly and repeatedly, this operation was designed to be blue and white. That's how Hanegbi put it. It's designed to be an operation that Israel can pull off by itself. Now, anybody who's following this a little bit understands that there are some things that would be easier for the Americans to do than for the Israelis. Okay, but that doesn't mean that the Americans have to do it. It doesn't mean that they have any kind of obligation. Israel believes, and I before I got on this evening, I called in a military officer, friend of mine, just to make sure that I'm updated on what people are thinking. And what people are thinking is you take that underground nuclear facility in Fardau, which is the subject that everybody's been talking about, that it's a deep underground and there's no way that Israel can do it, and the Israelis know that the Americans are going to have to do it. Look, obviously the B-2 can take it out better than Israel can, but that's entirely not the point. What's going to happen if Americans say no, we're not going to do it? Israel's going to go after it. And I went through a number of scenarios with him. I don't think it makes sense to detail them here, but let's just say there are aerial scenarios where Israel has techniques that it believes it can use to get through to get to the bottom of that mountain and eliminate that nuclear base. There are all sorts of scenarios that involve ground forces, and I won't go into this further. Israel has the ability to take out every single facility that we need to take out. The only question is how risky, how hard is it going to be? And and as I told you in the break, nobody has ever heard me calling for American troops to be sent not into Iraq and not into Afghanistan, not into Serbia. I've never called for any of these. I'm a tremendous skeptic, just like you are. But Israel, as you say, Israel has things that it's got to do. And America needs to make its own decisions. It's a sovereign country. I completely understand my MAGA friends who don't want to get involved in another Middle Eastern war. 100% understand it. It's going to make it a little bit harder for Israel, but the Israelis are ready to do it. It's our war. We know what we need to do. Everybody agrees on what we need to do. And I think that we also have what we need to be able to do it, even if it'll be a little bit harder to do it our way.
Yoram, where do people get your writings? Where do they keep up with you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at Hazony, YHAZONY. Please take a look at the new second edition of The Virtue of Nationalism, which I think will have a lot to say. Will speak to a lot of your viewers.
By the way, it's a must read. One of the foundational texts in the nationalist movement. Yoram, thank you so much for staying up in the middle of the night in Jerusalem. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
God bless you. Bye.